And that's where our story really begins. In this tale, this isn't just about one butterfly. There are two. One born in science fiction, the other in computer science, flapping their wings across decades, until their ripples finally collide into new order and effect. If Bradbury's butterfly really did echo in Lorenz's mind, then the concept of the butterfly effect itself is a victim of the butterfly effect. Chaos theory hides an uncomfortable truth. The tiniest little 0.001% shift in starting conditions can rewrite an entire outcome and final destiny. The tiniest differences make a difference. They matter. A single grain of sand could decide whether a machine holds or fails. A faint whisper of heat slipping through a window could determine if a nearby twister grows into something angry or fades into calm. Chaos theory is like a holy scripture written into the language of physics. Each equation is a psalm of cause and effect. Each variable a seed that may or may not grow into its own storm. And in that sacred scroll, the delicate butterfly is both proof and prophet, mover and shaker, saint and saboteur. One wing beat here now, a hurricane there later. The universe whispers in its own dialect of consequence. Every breath, every heartbeat is a stone tossed into the infinite rippling pond. Every new thought, a catalyst thrusting you down a new highway of timeline trajectories. Now imagine this. You get an itch under your shirt. You think about scratching it. Then you do. That small action triggers another tangent thought. Makes you notice your untied shoe. You bend down to tie it. And at that exact moment, a lawnmower in the neighbor's yard flings a pebble through the air. Right through the space your head was 1 second before. The pebble misses you, keeps flying, crashes through your kitchen window, and ruins a family member's breakfast in a burst of glass and toast. They toss out the eggs, the last eggs, and settle for cereal instead. That small decision, cereal over eggs, saves them from food poisoning, which would have led to diarrhea, which would have led to an urgent moment while trying to drive later that night. The panic and rush of the bathroom emergency causes them to perform a reckless maneuver, which leads to a fender bender. That little car crash breaks the wrist of the mayor's wife's sister, which causes the mayor to not make a dinner party that night, which would have influenced a certain donor. That would have potentially donated a significant sum to a local political campaign, which inadvertently leads to a local candidate taking office. That leads to a new governor making a phone call to the White House months later, which alters a single choice that the president makes signing a new bill into law, which inadvertently would have led to a conflict that escalates into World War III. Then the nukes launched. The world is devastated and ravaged so harshly that civilization collapses into an extinction-level planetary event. And it seems humanity has come to a deathly end all because you had an itch under your shirt. But perhaps ultimately the itch was caused by a stray piece of lint or hair from a dog or cat interaction 2 hours earlier, which was brought on by the dog or cat being up against your leg asking you for food and water, because you fell asleep right after getting home yesterday and you neglected to refill the food. At some point during the evening they ran out. But you were tired in the first place, because your boss put extra work on you, because he's uptight about his own finances and marital issues, which maybe was brought on by a recent fight, which was brought on because of a reaction to a certain political commercial, which was perhaps ultimately inspired and brought on by something the mayor's wife's sister once said. No sickness? No desperate bathroom run later that night. No panicked swerve on the freeway? No accident. No broken wrist? No missed dinner. No canceled meeting? No different decision. No different law. No world unraveling. It's absurd, but it's not impossible. It's not implausible. Every step makes sense. Every connection feels like it could be real. That's the eerie elegance of chaos. Everything believable, yet the total picture untouchable. That's the nature of chaos. Every link perfectly plausible, yet the entire chain utterly untraceable. It's an invisible domino pattern, only partly visible once the pieces are already on the floor. We like to imagine the world as stable, solid, predictable. But chaos, and the immense sea of variables beneath it, reminds us it's balanced on a knife's edge. Maybe that's why I've always had a love-hate relationship with it. Because it's not really about numbers. It's about that trembling breath before consequence, the stillness before thunder, the instant before reality decides which version of itself it wants to be. And that's where our story really begins. In this tale, this isn't just about one butterfly. There are two. One born in science fiction, the other in computer science, flapping their wings across decades, until their ripples finally collide into new order and effect. One lives in a 1952 short sci-fi story by Ray Bradbury. The other in a set of weather model equations from the mid-1960s. Two butterflies that never should have met, and yet, in the human imagination, they became the same instance of the same creature. One was made of ink and imagination, the other was made of math and air currents. Both carried the same message, about the ripples in time. Small things matter more than we think. And yet maybe one butterfly directly influenced the other. This is not publicly known, but it could be possible. Bradbury's Butterfly. The early 1950s. Eisenhower is campaigning. Televisions hum. Atomic optimism shadows atomic fear.
Wait a minute.
Ray Bradbury sits at his typewriter finishing A Sound of Thunder for Collier's magazine. It's set in a future where time travel has become a safari business. Tourists pay to hunt dinosaurs, under one sacred rule: stay on the path. The path is a hovering metal bridge, keeping them from touching prehistory, from altering anything that might ripple forward into the present. But fear always finds the weak seam. A hunter panics, steps off the path, and crushes a butterfly under his footwear. Not even a sound. A small, almost unnoticeable death. When they return, the world is wrong. Entire words are misspelled. The air feels heavier. The election has seemingly gone the other way. Bradbury doesn't explain how. He doesn't need to. The path is more than metal. It's the razor's edge between realities. Step off, and you fall into another fractal of time. A serpent devouring and remaking the future you thought was a fixed deal. The genius of Bradbury's image is that it held logic, but also goes beyond logic, and goes straight to intuition. You feel its truth. It's not an equation. It's a myth that behaves like reality, and a reality that behaves like a myth. Maybe that's why it haunts us. Because deep down, we sense we're all walking that same invisible path. Each choice, every breath, a variable in the equation of what is and what will be. Lorens's Butterfly. If Bradbury's butterfly was myth made flesh, Lorenz's was math made myth again. Almost a decade later, Edward Lorenz sits at his MIT office surrounded by humming machinery, computers. The Royal McBee LGP-30 and then RCA 1103 computers filled the room at different times, like metal beasts. Spinning tape reels, clattering keys, the heartbeat of computation. He's running weather simulations, systems of equations meant to predict the sky. To save time, he rounds off a few decimals. From 0.506127 becomes 0.506. When the printer finishes, the new pattern has veered completely from the old one. Virtually the same math, entirely different world. This was the beginning of complexity theory and chaos theory. Lorenz realized that even the smallest rounding error can cause enormous divergence over time. He described what was later called a sensitive dependence on initial conditions. He was discovering that precision, resolution, fidelity, and even the tiniest differences in rounding choice could steer reality down an entirely different branch of possibility. That in complex systems, difference in precision doesn't simply blur the picture, it redraws a new picture. That every little detail matters. Every speck holds mass and weight. Heck, even light is massless, yet still holds consequence, influence, and power. And it's not just randomness, it's determinism with amnesia. The rules never changed, but the future forgets the past. When Lorenz plots his equations, the data spirals into twin looping wings. The Lorens Attractor. This is how Lorenz invented his butterfly. His graphs looked like butterfly wings. Nature writes in golden spirals, the same patterns stamped across all scales. Seashells, sunflowers, hurricanes, galaxies, DNA, as if the creator left a special signature everywhere. Lorenz wasn't just forecasting weather anymore. He was describing the living logic of the universe. In 1972, he gave his now famous talk. Does the flap of a butterfly's wings in Brazil set off a tornado in Texas? Not quite literal, but irresistible. The butterfly became chaos's new mascot. If Bradbury's butterfly was the myth, the first legend of time's ripples, Lorenz's was the proof, the first mathematical description, a discovery and proof that the myth was math and reality, a literal truth. Could Lorenz have heard and echoed Bradbury's butterfly? A sound of thunder was everywhere. Radio plays, pulp anthologies, classroom readings. It's hard to imagine he hadn't brushed up against it within that time. Heck, even back in 2007 or 2008, when I myself was 12 or 13 or so in middle school, I remember reading Bradbury's A Sound of Thunder with the class. Maybe late one night, between coffee and computation, the story drifted back to him like a phantom memory. Maybe when his graph bloomed into twin spirals, some old intuition stirred, some thought or connection subconsciously. Influence moves like a hidden current, visible only when the light hits at the right angle. If Bradbury's butterfly fluttered quietly into Lorenz's equations, then the inception of the butterfly effect was itself a fantastic butterfly effect. One act of thoughtful sci-fi imagination in 1952 rippled 20 years forward to rename chaos itself across human understanding, science, and culture. Yet again, science fiction became science fact. Science became symbol. The symbol permeated through art, culture, and thought. The loop closed. By the late 70s, the chaos butterfly had escaped the lab. Computer scientists filled magazines with fractal art. Eventually, screensavers turned chaos into neon geometry. And then Hollywood found it. Jeff Goldblum as Malcolm flirted with the chaos butterfly in Jurassic Park.
Predictability in complex systems.
The shorthand is the butterfly effect. A butterfly can flap its wings in Peking, and in Central Park you get rain instead of sunshine.
In the actual book, which I also read in middle school, Crichton printed chaos fractals between each of the chapters. The Simpsons spoofed the idea with Homer's time toaster.
For a test toast. Let's go back to the time when dinosaurs weren't just confined to zoos. Okay, don't panic. Remember the advice your father gave you on your wedding day. If you ever travel back in time, don't step on anything, because even the tiniest change can alter the future in ways you can't imagine. Fine. As long as I stand perfectly still and don't touch anything, I won't destroy the future. Stupid bug! You go squish now! But that was just one little insignificant mosquito. That can't change the future, right?
Games made it interactive. Shadow of Memory, or Shadow of Destiny, depending on which region you played it in, played with time ripples. Until Dawn flashes a butterfly icon when your choice alters fate. Life is Strange tattoos it onto its own story. It fluttered its way through Donnie Darko, Steins Gate, The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, Rick and Morty, the time-twisted Ashton Kutcher movie called The Butterfly Effect. Even music caught it. Muse turned it into an anthem with butterflies and hurricanes. The butterfly became modern folklore, a mirror of consequence, a symbol for destiny. A reminder that causality hums under everything we think and do, or even when we choose to do nothing. By default, that is still choice with effect. Look closer, and the pattern repeats across everything. A galaxy curls like a seashell. A tree branches like lightning. Your heartbeat never quite repeats. Incredible variation, fluctuation, and unpredictability. Chaos theory doesn't deny order. It reveals that order is alive. Even though things feel random and chaotic, there is still rhyme and reason, logic and rules. The order is just hidden in a sea of variables and unpredictabilities. Mathematicians like Benoit Mandelbrot and Mitchell Feigenbaum proved that the same ratios appear everywhere, from ferns to tides. Reality is textured, recursive, the fingerprint of infinity printed in matter. Everything in reality is just the same few numbers, ratios, and patterns set on shuffle. Ancient mystics called it fate, karma, the weave of the Norns. Modern science calls it non-linear dynamics. Different language, same truths. Everything touches everything else. Everything is interconnected. Maybe intelligence itself is a strange attractor. The universe watching its own turbulence through our eyes, in some feedback loop. We build models, watch them fail, and learn through their chaos. That too is feedback. A driver's wrong turn in 1914 sparks a world war. A single line of code crashes a spacecraft. A word said in anger splits a friendship for many decades. We live inside invisible chains of cause and effect, and sometimes, if you look closely, you can see the hinge points. That night you almost stayed home. The stranger who changed your path. The project you almost abandoned. When you almost said no, but instead you said yes. Looking back, everything since was that moment unfolding. When you start to see the pattern, chaos stops being frightening. It starts to feel sacred. Sometimes, chaos shows up not in storms, but in spelling. You remember Berenstein bears with an E, not Berenstain. You picture the Monopoly man with a monocle. You recall Mandela's funeral years before he died. You were sure Fruit of the Loom had that cornucopia basket thing. History says otherwise. Kit Kat had a dash when I was a child. Dolly had braces in Moonraker. Now she doesn't. Chick-fil-A never had a K in my original timeline. You were sure that Febreze was spelled with two E's together in the middle. Or the Bible no longer says that the lion shall lie down with the lamb. It now only says wolf. That's the Mandela effect. That super eerie mismatch between experience, memory, and historical records and databases. Psychologists try to call it false memory convergence, but what if it's the edge of something stranger? Adjacent timelines brushing together, quantum fluctuations, software updates. Not forward or backward in time, sideways, lateral. The what-ifs of back then becoming the maybes of now. Bradbury's travelers returned to words spelled differently. Maybe that wasn't fiction. Maybe it was prophecy. Because language is alive, spelling is an evolving agreement, a collection, vibration of sound and meaning. If time ever rippled, we'd see it in the dictionary and logos and written phrases long before seeing it in the sky. Each letter a fingerprint of a reality we once inhabited. Maybe the Mandela effect is just the butterfly effect running laterally through time. Reality proofreading itself letter by letter. Picture the universe as an infinite web, every particle, every neuron, every entity and choice a node, each one tugging at the rest. When enough ripples overlap, timelines brush together. That's a type of déjà vu, the echo of something that almost was. Time might not be a straight line at all, but a vibrating multidimensional field of probabilities. Each wingbeat nudges one thread closer to another, until they touch, collide, and then drift apart again. That's adjacent timeline bleed-through, the shimmer between was and is, maybe and could be. Maybe that's why a word looks off, or a memory feels borrowed, because somewhere nearby, somewhere adjacent, another version of you remembers a bit differently. The butterfly didn't just move the air, it brushed the script of time itself, and for a moment, the wet pages overlapped and the letters bled through. If Bradbury's Butterfly really did echo in Lorenz's mind, then the concept of the butterfly effect itself is a victim of the butterfly effect. The serpent eats its tail. Cause births an effect that reshapes the cause. Fiction becomes science, and that science fiction becomes our story. Perhaps ideas obey chaos too, seeded in one mind, altered in another, evolving with each retelling. I think about that when I make these videos. How one spark of curiosity and wonder could ripple outward, to someone I'll likely never meet. Maybe years from now that spark lit in them lights something big. That's the destiny beyond the horizons of destiny, the boundaries and scope you'll never know. And you simply won't ever know your full effect. Maybe one night I almost give up finishing a certain video by a certain set deadline. A small choice to keep going, another hour longer. One click more, then another. One little wingbeat flutters forward. From that, then 1,000 little tendrils of influence reach out and connect. The loops remind me the future isn't sealed. It's still breathing. It's actively responding to our every move. What you do now will carry forward into tomorrow. In Genesis, creation begins not with form itself, but with vibration that takes form. And God said. The first cause wasn't just a push, shove, or pull. It was a spoken word. A sound or oscillation that catalyzed through the darkness, the chaos, the waters, and made the unlikely take form. If a lone butterfly can move the weather halfway across the planet, what can a single person move? What true extent of effect do your smallest seemingly insignificant choices create? What about your idle thoughts? Your true reach goes beyond your ability to comprehend, but each thought and act ripples out across time, across space, in surprising far-reaching ways. Everything is connected to everything else. It's like how your very body right now is technically causing a minute, seemingly insignificant gravitational pull on the farthest galaxies across space. It might be an incomprehensibly small and seemingly meaningless truth, but even the tiniest influences do technically matter. Consider this. Try a bold and patient change-up this week. Think about the future. What does someone need to hear right now? Write a kind message, a letter or text, an honest line, a deep reflection, for yourself or someone else. Do an extra hour of extra deep work, and let time do the heavy lifting. You may not see every result, but understand that you are an effect causer in this life. You have significance because you matter. You matter because you cause an effect. And from all time, space, and from every possible angle, causation is a field rippling on through totality. So, here we stand. Two butterflies, born years apart. One in fiction, one in physics. One in myth, one in math. Both whispering the same truth. You are not a passenger. You are the variable. Every choice you make is a wing beat. Every thought, a ripple threading through time. The itch you scratched, the word you didn't say, these aren't trivial. They're generative acts, rewriting what comes next, and maybe what came before. If the Mandela effect teaches us anything, it's that reality is softer than we thought. Memory shifts, timelines shimmer. The past itself might be under revision. The ground beneath your feet is not as solid as you were told. This should terrify you. This should exalt you. Because if small things matter, if a single flap can summon storms, then you carry infinite weight. Your kindness reverberates. Your silence reshapes. Your action becomes consequence. The universe is not a machine that runs without you. It's a living equation, and you are the variable that won't resolve. So stop walking the path like it's already written. You're writing it. The question was never, do you matter? The question is, what storm are you writing into existence? And so, do you stay on the path?